Hello guys, Tops here. Today the short version of my background tier list for Battle Brothers. So in the S tier I have the brothers or the backgrounds that are consistently strong, even if they don't have good stars or good traits. In the second tier I have the good highborns, and the highborns are basically expensive backgrounds that tend to have higher combat stats, what we are looking for. But they didn't make it into S tier. And then the next tier is basically the good lowborns. I've specifically put them in this category so you can see which are the guys for lowborn affiliation if you play something like peasant militia, right? And then the next one is the tier where they are neither high nor lowborn, and they are event starting background brothers, basically. So some of them are really hard to acquire. And this is a special tier. And then the F tier is just for the meat bros or for the desperate people. Okay, so S tier, Trash Knights. Probably the strongest background in the game, has a shit ton of additional stats. I always roll poorly on them, but I love my fucking Trash Knights. Very expensive, but if they roll well, just the best brother you will ever get. Next one is the Gravedigger. I really like those guys because they are cheap as chips, cost you 100 golds, have 0 base wage, 5 gold base wage, and they have a shit ton of additional stats for that, and they are super cheap. So that's why I like gambling on them. Constantly find really good ones. Next one, Hunter. Just the best background for ranged. Has just additional fatigue and I think plus 20 range skill, so the best one for that. Militias, they are relatively cheap. Like I always try to buy every militia, especially the militias who are like below 500 or below 600 gold. They have just a lot of bonus stats, really good and consistent. I have the monk in my backpack, always for good events. So that's why he's S tier. He makes bad events into good events. Useful to have on the backhand if you have a backhand. Of course, if you have play Lone Wolf or Gladiators, you don't have this. Next ones. Melee Nomads are really consistent in terms of stats. They can be relatively cheap. Like a lot of the times you see them for like 1,000, 1,500, something like that. And they have a shit ton additional stats and don't have many downsides. I don't think they have any downsides to them. So really consistent there. Next one, Oath Takers. Just Trash Knights with less fatigue. Basically really consistent in terms of their combat stats, and they are the best background if you want to make Fencers, Dagger Duelist, something like that. Really good for dodge backgrounds because of the high initiative. The Thief is basically the low burn version of that Oath Taker. Has even higher defenses than the Oath Taker and comparable initiative with significantly less hit points and melee attack. But if you find a good one, I think basically any Thief can be made into a nimble tank, nimble dodge tank, dagger duelist, dagger puncture tank, something like this. And if you find a good one with high melee attack, you can attempt to make him into a fencer or into a frontliner even. So really consistent, and they cost you 200 gold, 400 golds, really cheap. Okay, next ones, the good highborns. We have the good highborns. These are basically expensive bros that are just good, you know. And by the way, I think this is the Barbarian. The Barbarian should be in this tier. I'm sorry for that. So we have the Adventurous Noble. Is relatively expensive, like most 2 to 4k. But if these guys roll well, they just have a shit ton of combats. That's really good. The ranged Nomad is weaker than the Hunter in terms of ranged attack, but he also has additional melee attack. So really good bro. Just less consistent for melee brothers and less consistent for range. So just buy a Hunter or a melee Nomad instead. But if you can't find any Hunters, these ones are still good. Then we have the next one. We have the Raider. Raider, Sellswords. They are just have high combat stats, but a lot of bad events. Squire can roll well, is relatively cheap. It's basically a Hedge Knight Light. If he rolls well, God Bro. Swordmaster's probably the craziest background with like ridiculously combat stats, the highest combat stats in the game, but like unfixable hit points and fatigue. So your best fatigue neutral bros. And then all of these brothers are basically the good lowborns that are super cheap, and I really like to gamble on all of them early on. And if you play something like Militia or you play Cultist where you only convert lowborns, yeah, I always gamble on them, especially stuff like Daytailers for 100 golds, buy all of them. Manhunters can be relatively cheap. They're cheaper than the militia usually with similar stats. These ones cost 100, like miners are relatively cheap. I always buy these in bucket loads and keep the good bros for my late game company. Yeah, these ones are either the starting backgrounds or the event backgrounds. So most of them are pretty rare. And some of them have good downsides or upsides, but none of these are specifically lowborn affiliated. And I didn't put them in highborn either. Okay, and yeah, the trash tier are basically all the garbage bros. Like all the trash bros that I just buy if I need another meat brother. Some of them are really expensive that I just hate buying, which is, for example, the Disadvantageous Noble, specifically the Gladiator. They are just consistently bad and they are ridiculously expensive. Like they have the same wage as something like the Trash Knight, and you are always better with buying just a normal melee nomad, an Oath Taker. Of course, Trash Knight is better. Just gambling on Adventurous Nobles, Raiders, and Sellswords is better than buying Gladiators. They are ridiculously overpriced for what they are. Same as the Retired Soldier. I hate them. They most of the time cost like 2,000 golds around there. So just buy melee nomads, militias, even Oath Takers can be bought for this price. Like you can gamble on Raiders and Sellswords, Adventurous Nobles. They're all around the same cost. And there's no reason to buy like this guy for fatigue neutral, right? It's better to gamble on many deserters for the fatigue neutral or to buy a Sellsword, not a Swordmaster right away if you want to make fatigue neutral. And like Swordmasters, they cost you most of the time like around 3k or something, so it's just a better version of the Retired Soldier. So only if you are dire, I would buy them. And I really don't like their assassins because of their negative hit points and negative fatigue. It's like if you want to make something fast and dodgy, just go for an Oath Taker. All right, guys, this was the fast version or the short version of my background tier list. I have the long version. You can watch that. It's an hour long. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can join me on Twitch and YouTube. I stream daily. Have a nice day, guys. Bye-bye.